Oh, baby, we got a Saturday special going of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast and a whole lot to get to, including, are the Rangers the best team in the league? Connor Bedard flexing his muscle? Kyle Connor, one of the most underrated snipers in the league, and a whole lot more. Thank you so much for joining us for this weekend special. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news and daily degenerate gambling breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and I'm privileged to be joined, as always, by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden, and on this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for joining us and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's J-A-S-E medical.com. Steele, we're going to be back to our regularly scheduled programming next week, Monday through Friday, but with so much going on in the NHL and us missing Friday, we had to come on here Saturday special and talk about a number of intriguing topics, including how about the Blue Shirt Podcast making a return? We're talking about our Rangers a little bit here on today's episode. In specific, you got a trio of names you want to touch on. Connor Bedard has to be spoken about. The kid's starting to settle in real nice, Steele, and I got a couple of takes for what's going on in Chicago. Kyle Connor, I'm so glad you brought this up off air. My goodness, I was taking a look at this guy, maybe the most underrated pure sniper in the league today. Hyped to talk about him. We can't come on this Saturday special and not mention what's going on with the Edmonton Oilers. Big-time bets. Take it away, my friend, though, with this New York Rangers team. I know you've had your eyes on them. What are you seeing? Who do you want to highlight? And where do you think this team is headed? Are they the best in the NHL?
I love the way the New York Rangers are playing right now, and I think they have the confidence, again, like I've said this for the last couple of years, to make a deep Stanley Cup playoff run and maybe even get to the Stanley Cup finals. I have them as the second best team in the NHL right now, right behind the Vegas Golden Knights. I know the Boston Bruins are ahead of them as well, but to me, the New York Rangers just have that prolific offense and defensive, plus the goalies. It's just everything's clicking right now. I know the Bruins are too, but personally, I'm going with the Rangers at number 2. And I love the way they're playing. I do want to highlight a couple of guys right now, but they're 8-0-1 in their last 9 games. They're 4th in the NHL, 4th in goals for, 3rd in goals against, and 5th in goal differential. So everything right now is clicking for the New York Rangers. And again, I want to talk about 3 players specifically today: Alexis Lafreniere, Jonathan Quick, and Mika Zibanejad. And I want to start off with Lafreniere because he has been absolutely rock solid to start the season in the first 13 games. 5 goals and 9 points so far, 5 of which he's got in the last 3 games. And honestly, we've said this over time, over the summer, as well as even towards the end of last season. We've seen the confidence, we've seen the development grow continuously since he's entered the NHL when he was drafted four seasons ago. And again, we're seeing he's working on those smaller things in his game, and we're seeing it now on a more consistent basis. He's getting pucks to the net. He's finding the open seams to make a pass. He's getting open for quick shots, and he's only rostered right now at 20%. So I know I'm probably going to talk about him on Monday's episode for waiver wire targets, but he's playing really great right now on that second line with Trocheck and the Breadman Artemi Panarin. So I got to highlight Alexis Lafreniere because of the way he's playing and overall just the New York Rangers.
The fact that line also is, I just like that it seems to have a little bit of everything. You know, I'm high on Vincent Trocheck, but Panarin, I always mess that up. Panarin is on a 7. How many games he's had a point in every single game this season, and I was just looking this up. Still.
I think he's on a 13-game point streak right now.
13-game point streak, and a number of those are multi-point games. This is one of those players that, I know, dedicated hockey heads, of course, are all over him, all over what the Breadman can bring. But for some reason, I feel he's also underrated. Steele, 8 goals, 14 assists for 22 points. 47 shots on net, which is something that, I love to talk about. When a player's confident, they're firing that puck. 204 shots last year. He's already on pace to blow that out of the water in terms of shots. The goaltending, Steele. I know I just want to very quickly tee this up for you. The strength from this team is back and out. And my goodness, they're dealing with a key injury to Adam Fox, and they've almost gotten stronger with arguably their most important player on the ice out of the lineup. When that happens, you need to be paying attention to squads because usually, and it's happening around the league, key pieces go down and teams falter. This Rangers team has had key pieces go out. I believe Shesterkin's been battling a bug as well, and they're thriving. You're going to mention John Quick, but the key to success of teams that win the cup, nudge, nudge, look at the Golden Knights, balanced attack and a deep squad, and the Rangers have that at every position, it seems.
Yeah, and everything's clicking right now. And I think for me, that's the biggest difference with this Rangers team this season compared to last season is that you have a guy that can back up Igor Shesterkin that you can actually depend on. You know, they lose Georgiev 2 seasons ago. They bring in Halak, and it just wasn't a good fit. He lost his first 8 straight starts of the season and just wasn't dependable. It seemed like every time Halak was in the net, the Rangers just didn't know how to play hockey. The team shut down. They weren't able to score goals, but defensively, Halak was awful as well. And now that you have a guy like Jonathan Quick, and I know over the last few seasons, even before we started this podcast, I've talked about how Quick doesn't have it in his game anymore. He's not fantasy relevant. He's not a starter anymore in the NHL. You go back to his you go all the way back to 2018-19 season. He's had a pretty bad year every single year, and he's not a starting goaltender. But what he is he's a great backup goaltender because that's where he's at right now at the stage of his career. He's played absolutely fantastic so far for the Rangers. 3-0-1 to start the season, a .935 save percentage, a .177 goals against average. And again, this is a goaltender that you can now depend on if things aren't going your way with Igor Shesterkin. We know he's still one of the best in the league, but right now Shesterkin's been hurt. He's been battling injury. Jonathan Quick comes in and he cleans up for the Rangers in the blue crease. I know Quick got injured a couple of games ago as well. Louis Domingue comes in and he steps up in a big way against the Minnesota Wild. So I just got to mention Jonathan Quick because now that when you go into a game and Jonathan Quick is the starter, it seems like the New York Rangers just have that belief and trust in him, and which they didn't have in Halak last year.
How can you not when you're bringing in a backup? And yeah, he's 37 years old. I think also he may have been dealing with COVID, Steele. I thought I read that he may have been sick. That's why he was out. When you have a guy, and again, I know he's at the back end of his career. He's on the back 9. 2-time cup winner, all-star. Conn Smythe, 2-time Jennings Trophy Award winner. That's something that brings confidence. And let's also not forget about that blue line. I know you want to talk about Zibanejad, but also speaking about Zibanejad, this team plays like its leader. Very, very neat and tidy at both ends of the rink. Zibanejad embodies how this team plays. I really do believe they also kind of all go about their business in silence, very much like Zibanejad. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of numbers about the Rangers before I let you go off about Zibanejad. We'll come back after the break. We'll talk about Bedard, Kyle Connor, the Oilers, big-time bets. But the numbers behind this team, Steele, back them up. The second best power play in the league at 35% plus, the New York Rangers. In the top 10 in penalty kill at number 7, the New York Rangers. And how about this stat, Steele? And maybe this is allowing Jonathan Quick and Shesterkin to have a good year. Only 2 teams allow less shots on net per game. The Rangers, 27 shots against per game. They get it done in all aspects, and they're getting it done at all ends. And a lot of that has to do with Mika Zibanejad.
The whole team is playing great right now. And like you said, he's been great so far. But honestly, I also think Mika Zibanejad needs to be a little bit better on the offensive side of things. Only 2 goals in 13 games so far this season, has a 5.9 shooting percentage. And he does have 34 shots, but I think he needs to be shooting the puck a lot more. But more importantly, he actually needs to be hitting the net. He only 45% of the time he's hitting the net right now. So it's not a great statistic for Mika Zibanejad, who we know has an absolute rocket of a one-timer. He has great hands, can stick handle through anybody, and has a quick release from in close. He's super fast. Again, wicked shot. And from me, I just haven't seen it as much this year. And even though the Rangers are playing great hockey, I still think Mika Zibanejad offensively can be a little bit better by, actually hitting the net, focusing on the target and picking those corners. other than what we've seen, because 45 hitting the net 45% of the time for me is not great.
100%, and more so to the point I was trying to make has a lot to do with how he leads this team, and I
Yes.
think that's how effective he's able to be, still making a mark on the game while not maybe changing it offensively. You're right, though. 2 goals is not going to be good enough to start the season. 10 points ain't too shabby, though. What is on point, though, is the rest of this episode, Steele, because we got to get to our friends from Parkview Advance. Today's episode is brought to you by Parkview Advance, among others. As a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind. That doesn't mean you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. For more than 25 years, Parkview Advance has helped businesses secure working capital from $5,000 up to $1.5 million. Parkview Advance can improve your working capital in as little as 24 hours in a much easier process than you might imagine. We invite the many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL fans to learn more by calling 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Go to parkviewadvance.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Collective. If you run a small business, you're an army of one, you still need a CPA, bookkeeper, separate payroll solution, and more, let Collective take care of the paperwork while you take care of business. You're running a business of one, you're wearing so many hats day to day. With Collective bookkeeping and accounting, you don't need to be one of them. You can start saving thousands of bucks and hours of your time by letting Collective handle your business's paperwork. Join the thousands of solopreneurs that have saved an average of $10,000 per year on taxes with their structure. Right now, Collective is offering 1 free month and no onboarding fee when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On NHL sent you. That's $550 in value, Steal, for free when you go to collective.com/LockedOnNHL and tell them Locked On sent you. That's collective.com/LockedOnNHL.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your favorite team from all 4 major sports leagues, including the NCAA, your team every single day. And Chicago Blackhawks right now are Connor Bedard's team, because he had a huge night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, 4-point night. I know you got a lot to say on this. We actually haven't talked a lot about Connor Bedard and the Chicago Blackhawks this season, but we have to talk about it, because what a game and what a performance he just put on.
Most definitely. And I think the key here, main takeaway, is he's settling right in, Steele. Yes. And I made a few notes from what I've seen from Connor Bedard so far. Number one, right at the top of the page, the confidence is clearly building in a very big way. And I know at the start of the season, I think you made a comment that you'd like to see a little bit more from Bedard in terms of what we know he's able to do in terms of a game-changing ability to step in the clutch and make plays. And I also think what impresses me the most with him, and good goal scorers, the Austin Matthews of the world, the Alex Ovechkins, what is one of their innate abilities to do? It's to find that open space and to have a nose for the net. He's already got his body in place to score. That's not something that a lot of players can learn. It's got to be something that comes with being an elite level player that Connor Bedard is. And I wanted to just lastly mention his shot. His shot is very deceptive. Yeah. I think he can work on it, though. I think it can come a long way. I think he puts on a little bit of muscle, and that shot is going to be very hard to beat, because in my opinion, it's already one of the best in the business, and it's very deceptive. And I think what he makes up for in his lack of speed on that shot is it is lethally accurate, Steele, and he does not miss by much.
And he's talked a lot about, kind of mirroring the way that Austin Matthews shoots the puck as well. Very deceptive. You don't know where it's going to be coming from, changing the angles with those little tiny toe drags and shooting past defenders as well. So he really looks up to Austin Matthews in that way with his shooting ability. And like you said, he's played great hockey so far, but this was the type of game I have been waiting to see from Connor Bedard. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4-point night in a win against Tampa Bay Lightning. He's got 11 points in 12 games now. And the play he made, which ended up resulting in a really beautiful goal, was probably the coolest play I've seen in a long time. And if you haven't watched it out there, I really urge everyone to go watch it on YouTube. But I'm not even going to explain this. I'm not going to explain it properly, do it justice by any means. But he takes a quick swipe with the toe of his blade and perfectly sends it to Nick Foligno, quickly turns up the ice, receives a pass, and scores a beauty in the dying seconds of the first period. Like, it was unbelievable how he stole that puck away from Nikita Kucherov by barely doing anything with the swipe of his hand and stick. And it just was absolutely beautiful to see it. And he's just playing great hockey right now. Also, a little bit of a side note with the Chicago Blackhawks. I've been very surprised by Peter Mrazek's play so far this season. 4-3-0 with a .921 save percentage. Wow. So the Blackhawks aren't out of it. They've got some life in them. Connor Bedard leading the way along with Corey Perry and Nick Foligno, the veterans right now. And like you said as well, Philip Kurashev playing great on that top line as well with Bedard.
That's why you tap into Monday waiver wire episodes, which we will have this upcoming Monday. Shout out to everyone joining us for the Saturday special episode. Just lastly, Steele, Bedard factors in on 4 of 5 tallies against a very good Tampa Bay Lightning team. Let's not get it twisted here. This wasn't going up against the San Jose Sharks or Edmonton Oilers or something like that, Steele. Wow, things are bad out west.
Yep.
But he becomes the youngest player in Blackhawks franchise history with a multi-goal 4-point game. That is a lengthy, storied franchise, and this kid's already starting to do special things, and we're only 1 month in, Steele. I think my take on Fantilli over him for the Calder was off, but there are a couple others that might not be off, including how about these Winnipeg Jets, Steele? Turn it right over to you. What are you thinking here? Because I got a few takes on Kyle Connor as well as this entire Jets squad overall.
Well, so far you've been right with your prediction about the Winnipeg Jets to start the season. We'll see where they are and how they're doing towards the end of the season. But Kyle Connor has been a huge part of that, along with so many other guys as well, stepping up. As Connor Hellebuck isn't playing his best game right now, I would say. But Kyle Connor leading the board right there with Mark Scheifele, up to 16 points on the season. He's got 9 points in his last 4 games right now. Really just seemed like he awoken out of nowhere and just turned on the Jets, no pun intended.
Whoa. Okay.
Gotta throw it out there. But Kyle Connor, like you said, in the Winnipeg Jets, just playing really good hockey right now and just had a big night, hat trick, 4-point night as well. In that 6-3 win, I believe, or Nashville Predators, I believe it was.
Yes.
But huge night. And again, the last 5 games from Kyle Connor just seems like a complete 180 from how we saw him at the beginning of the first 6 or 7 games, even though he was scoring some goals here and there. Just the way overall he's playing right now, it just seems like he's got his confidence back, shooting the puck and offensively.
This is a very smooth skating, cerebral player out there, Steele. Never seems to be very rushed with his puck decisions. Never seems to be really making any anxious type moves. And right here at the top of what I got to say about this player is, again, and I know I've thrown it out there a few times, definitely one of the more underrated scorers in the game. And he's really starting to prove it right now. And over the last couple of seasons, though, I got the wrong Connor up. I got Connor Bedard. I got Kyle Connor. I got Tab Madness over here. 11 goals, 5 assists, like you said, this season. But over the course of his career of 8 seasons, 220 goals and 220 assists. He's almost a point per game player. There's not a ton of those around anymore, Steele. And let's not forget, he comes into the league and he's 4th in Calder voting in 2018. That's something that you always got to take note of, because maybe he didn't exactly live up to the hype right away. But, 56 points in his first year, 66 in his second. I'm going to say this is one of the more underrated players for sure. He's consistently producing, and I'll leave it at this with this New York Jets team. Not only are they getting really balanced scoring, top 9, top 3 lines, very balanced.
Perfetti.
Hey, also third line, Appleton, Lowry, and Nino Niederreiter, providing a lot of grit and some scoring. What's interesting, though, and this is my final point, when I dug into these numbers, their power play this year, Steele, really not that good. Let me bring this up. The Winnipeg Jets this season on the power play proficiency, when I was looking at this earlier, I know 18th in the NHL, and their penalty kill, I believe, was even worse. Winnipeg Jets, 23rd best penalty kill. So their special teams has not been clicking, but they are in the top 6 in the NHL in scoring. So that balanced depth, the Perfettis. Mark Scheifele is getting it done at both ends of the ice. This is going to lead to success, which it has already. And they are, like you said, even making up for Connor Hellebuck's inconsistencies early here.
Top 3 in the Central Division. And just before we move on to the Edmonton Oilers and big time bets, this has nothing to do with the Jets, but you're talking about special teams, power play. St. Louis Blues who are in 4th in the Central Division are 1 for 34 on the power play this season, rocking at a 2.5% on the power play. Just absolutely brutal, but yet they're still ahead of the Coyotes, Wild, Blackhawks, and Predators in that Central Division. We are going to get to big time bets. We're going to talk about I don't even know what to describe them as, the bottom of the barrel Edmonton Oilers.
Dumpster fire?
Not dumpster fire. That's probably the best way.
There you go.
It is just disappointing, embarrassing, the performance. We're going to get all of that and big time bets after this. But this episode is also brought to you by Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I and Flip. We get fired up together with wins and losses, who starts and who sits. But we got to talk about something serious right now. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you the peace of mind so that you are not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure that you have the medication on hand, and it's very simple to use. You go online, fill out a form, and then you get prescription life-saving medications right to your doorstep. The Jase case gives you peace of mind. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off using code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Promo code LOCKEDON for additional $20 off at checkout. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Please continue to hit that subscribe, leave a follow, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all the love and support you show us every single day, Monday through Friday. We know we missed Friday's episode. That's why we're making it up for today on Saturday's special weekend drop of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Big time bets coming up soon, but the Edmonton Oilers, even though the San Jose Sharks, they've won 2 in a row now, the Edmonton Oilers are the worst team in the NHL.
Wow.
Tied for last in points, even though they played one less game than the San Jose Sharks, but only 5 points on the season. Before I throw it over to you, I just have to start off with this. I watched the game last night because I had 2 bets going on it.
Yeah, you did.
David didn't hit. Puck line didn't hit. I'm never betting on the Oilers again until they can figure out what's going on. I'm never going to bet on them until Jay Woodcroft gets fired, and that's what I want to start with right now.
Yeah.
Post-game interview after the 3-2 loss, Jay Woodcroft was asked the question, you have a Stanley Cup contending team, but you sit 32nd in the league. Are you worried about your job? And basically he comes back saying, no,
Great question.
I worry about the day-to-day logistics of how we're going to do things on this team. I don't worry about that. He basically just kind of blew it off a little bit.
Yep.
I said this in the group chat in our fantasy listener league. I can't remember if it was the competitive or the casual, but anyways, I said, if Woodcroft isn't fired by Monday, I would be shocked. And I know that we've already seen a few analysts and people in the media come out and say that they're going to give him he's coaching the weekend. There's no intentions of firing or letting go Jay Woodcroft anytime soon. They're going to figure it out. But I can't believe that you're not even close to the decision of trying to fire this guy, because he does not have this team under his wraps. He is not at the helm right now.
Look, I have said a lot about this Edmonton Oilers team over the last couple of weeks. I spoke about this at length, actually, about both goaltenders on my solo episode the other day, Steele. So I don't want to rehash too much of what I think a lot of people are already aware of. We know that this team is struggling at all aspects. Connor McDavid is rumored to be banged up. That could be a much bigger story than any of this combined. The team struggling to score. We know the mess in goal. Calvin Pickard should not be an option that any team wants to go to, and it looks like they're going to have to go to him over the next couple of games. Look, Stuart Skinner's a second-year player. he should be in the position right now that if there is struggles when you're trying to make him the number one, that he's able to take the time to hone his game, being the second, being the backup behind a more veteran presence, learning what it's like to be an everyday NHL goaltender. Steele. They don't have that luxury. Skinner hasn't been good, and Connor McDavid hasn't been nearly good enough. And now I'm going to put it on Leon Draisaitl as well. But to bring it back to the coaching, why are you bringing in a new defensive system to a team that finally last year was starting to figure it out defensively? That's number one. And number two, why are you still going with said system if it's clearly not working? And I'll leave it at this, Steele, because I do want to get to bets, because I think everyone is clear that this Edmonton Oilers team is bad. The San Jose loss is really the tipping point. After San Jose had a negative 41 goal differential, it's not even close. It's the Edmonton Oilers over teams like the Calgary Flames, Nashville Predators, Columbus Blue Jackets, Philadelphia Flyers, and even the Ottawa Senators. And it's actually not close. This is really indicative, Steele, of how bad this team has been overall. And it's got to turn around in a hurry here. We've talked about leapfrogging teams. It's going to get ugly in Edmonton, I think, before it gets any prettier, honestly. That's my take on this.
It probably will, and people are already coming out with their mock trades for the Edmonton Oilers. What do you need to do to right the ship in Edmonton right now? We might have to have another episode just solely based on mock trades to figure out what could be a plausible trade between the Edmonton Oilers and another organization. Let's get over to big time bets though for Saturday night. I've got 3 picks. I went 0 for 3 on Thursday night. I'm taking a step back from, I'm going back to the traditional picks of straight money line bets right now.
Respect.
I'm just going to list off all 3 picks before this episode gets too long. First pick of the day, Avalanche on the money line against the St. Louis Blues. Nice little rivalry game going on here. I'm going to take the Avalanche on the money line. The odds I don't believe the odds are out yet, but we'll get those odds out an hour before puck drop. Avalanche first pick, money line. Second pick, I'm going to take the Flames on the money line against the Ottawa Senators. I just have a really good gut feeling about this game on the road. And this is going to be a big game for both these teams, who are honestly both struggling right now in their respective divisions and their conferences. And my lock of the night, I'm going to take the Jets on the money line at home against the Dallas Stars right now. It's going to be a great game. I'm really hoping Connor Hellebuyck brings his A++ game, and we can see another big offensive output from your boy Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti.
I like how you're going. Oh, you know how much I've been loving this Cole Perfetti, Seth Jarvis early performance this season, Steele. Come on now. You know I'm feeling that and drinking that Kool-Aid. You're taking some bold angles here, and I like it. You're going back to the drawing board, just kind of going with some gut angles. I don't hate that. If that is the scenario you find yourself in, though, out there for our listeners, and I would even give this advice to you as well, Steele, maybe it's just one of those nights that you dial the bet back as well.
Yeah.
If you have been hitting the skids, you've been feeling a little unlucky, there's nothing wrong with dialing that bet back. A win's a win, baby. So any kind of money in the bank is a good situation. I'm looking at 3 completely different games, Steele, which is interesting for you and I. I don't think that happens a whole lot.
Very rare.
Anyway, let's start with this Vancouver-Toronto game. The Vancouver Canucks have a 7-3-0 record in their last 10 games against Toronto, and they've actually fared pretty good over their last 5 games. And when I say pretty good, how about 5 straight wins while scoring over 25 goals? Steele, they've scored almost 30 goals in their last 5 games, and they're absolutely rolling. The Toronto Maple Leafs are going to need a big-time response. Jake McCabe is back Friday night against the Calgary Flames. I know I'm not saying Jake McCabe is the savior for this Blue Line's woes, but it's going to help. And I think playing Calgary on Friday night against Dan Vladar, I know it's a tough back-to-back, but they're at home, and I like this spot for the Toronto Maple Leafs overall, but I'm not going to go to them on the money line. I'm going over the total here, Steele. I think the Leafs are going to have to respond with some goals. Vancouver is clicking with some goals. We know Wall and Samsonov, whoever's in net, the last couple, they've both been struggling a little bit. So give me the over in that one. Second pick very quickly, Adrian Kempe. This is a player that I've talked about at length on this show, Steele, so I don't need to get into how much I like this kid. He's 27 years old. 6 goals, 9 assists for 15 points to start the year. The LA Kings are absolutely rolling. And 13 games, 9 assists. I love the Adrian Kempe anytime assist in this one against the Philadelphia Flyers team. falling back to earth in a big way. And I think perhaps one of my favorite bets when I come on this show and tell people to put their money down has to do with number 87. And when I take a look at Buffalo playing the Pittsburgh Penguins, Steele, and I dig into the numbers, by the way, Sid, 7 goals, 7 assists, leading the team again this year, 14 points. In his career, however, Steele, 56 regular season games against these Buffalo Sabres, 27 goals, 53 assists in 56 games for 80 points. Give me the Crosby anytime assist for my lock of the night. I feel like that one is free money.
And that's why they call him Sid the Kid, because he just ages like fine wine. Just seems like he will never, ever, ever stop producing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I like the over 6.5 for that Maple Leafs game the most, because I don't know if you saw that statistic the other day, but every single home game so far for the Maple Leafs, they've allowed 4+ goals. So it's been struggling. They've been struggling to keep the puck out of their net at home. We'll see what happens. Hopefully the over 6.5 hits. I really like that one the most, but I like all 3 of your picks. So I might have to dive onto those 3 a little bit too. But again, gonna have to dial it back a little bit with how much I'm putting out there. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find all of our episodes. Subscribe, follow, 5-star review. We appreciate all of that. Thank you again so much for tuning in for this special episode for this weekend. Have a great day out there. Have a great weekend. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.